There's a moment everyone hits sooner or later. Maybe it's when you're brushing your teeth before work, or sitting in your car waiting for the light to turn green, or scrolling through your phone even though nothing on that screen feels meaningful anymore. It's that quiet second when you suddenly notice the weight in your chest and think, something in my life isn't matching who I want to be. And with that thought comes a small sting. Not dramatic, just honest. A mix of regret for what you didn't try, frustration over the things that keep repeating, and a little fear that you might stay stuck in the same loops forever if something doesn't change. It's the kind of tension you don't admit out loud, but you feel it every day. When you compare your progress to others, when you pretend you're fine, when you wonder if you're doing life right at all. You're not alone. Most people aren't confused because they're weak or unmotivated. They're confused because no one gave them a real understanding of how life actually works, how thoughts affect choices, how words carry weight, how beliefs shape what you chase and what you avoid. There's a system behind all of it. Simple, human, practical. And once you see it, things start making sense. This audiobook is about that clarity. It's about understanding the quiet patterns that guide your decisions, influence your opportunities, and ultimately shape your direction. It's not magic. It's not wishful thinking. It's learning how to navigate your own mind so life stops feeling random. And if you're here, you're probably ready for that kind of shift. So let's begin. Chapter 1. The Invisible Rules Running Your Life. You ever notice how some moments in life repeat, even when you swear you're trying to do things differently? Maybe it's falling for the same kind of person who leaves you drained. Maybe it's missing opportunities because you talk yourself out of them. Or maybe it's the habit of doubting yourself the second something good starts to happen. These patterns don't show up because we're careless. They show up because something beneath the surface, something we rarely pay attention to, is quietly shaping our choices. Most of us move through life reacting more than deciding. We wake up, check our phones, push through responsibilities, deal with whatever comes up, and hope we make progress somewhere along the way. But underneath all of that routine is a set of unspoken rules, beliefs, fears, assumptions, and mental habits we didn't consciously choose. They're things we absorb from childhood, from people around us, from failures that left scars we never healed. And because they run in the background, we don't question them. We just live by them. The tricky part is, these invisible rules decide a lot. They influence what you speak up about, what you stay silent on, what risks you take, and what dreams you shelf because they feel too far away. And the most painful truth is this: life isn't stopping you. Your inner rules are. But once you start noticing them, the game changes. You stop blaming luck or timing or other people. You start realizing you've been holding a playbook you never read. And learning those rules is the first step toward rewriting them. This chapter is simply about waking up to what's been guiding you all along. The hidden framework, the inner script, the quiet voice that says yes or no before you even think. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Chapter 2. The Power You Don't Know You Have. There's a moment you'll experience on this journey, a moment when you suddenly realize you've been giving away more power than you've been using. Not because you meant to, but because you didn't know it was yours to begin with. Most people walk through life believing they only control their effort, not their outcomes, their actions, not their direction. But the truth is, your influence runs deeper than you think. Think about how quickly your mind reacts to doubt. One small thought, what if I fail, is enough to make your chest tighten, your confidence drop, and your entire plan feel heavier. That's not weakness. That's power. That's proof your inner world can shift your outer world in seconds. And if fear can do that much damage that quickly, imagine what clarity could do. Imagine what belief could do. Imagine what happens when your mind stops fighting you and starts working with you. The problem is, no one teaches us how to use that power intentionally. We're taught discipline, responsibility, productivity, but not influence. Not the influence we have over our own thoughts, reactions, expectations, and emotional patterns. So we grow up thinking life is something that happens to us instead of something that responds to us. But here's the shift. Once you stop running your life on autopilot, you begin to see that every thought plants a direction, every word carries weight, every belief pushes you forward or pulls you back. And the power you're looking for, the confidence, the clarity, the courage, isn't something you earn later. It's something you uncover now. This chapter is about understanding that you're not powerless. You're untrained, and that's a very different thing. When you recognize the influence you hold, even quietly within yourself, life stops feeling like a storm you're trying to survive and starts feeling like a path you're learning to walk. Chapter 3. When your mind becomes the game board. There's a point in life when you finally realize that the biggest battles you face aren't in the outside world. They're happening inside your own head. Not in some dramatic movie-type way, but in the everyday moments you rarely pay attention to. The hesitation before you speak. The second-guessing after you make a choice. The way one small criticism from someone can stick to you for hours, even days. It's subtle, but it shapes everything. Your mind is the game board where every move starts. Before you try, before you quit, before you love, before you walk away, your inner dialogue decides the direction. And most people don't realize how loud that dialogue is because it doesn't shout, it whispers. It shows up in the thoughts that slip in when you're tired. It shows up in the excuses that sound reasonable. It shows up in the narratives you repeat. I'm not ready. People like me don't get that kind of chance. I'm probably going to mess this up anyway. Those thoughts don't appear because you're weak. They appear because your mind is wired for protection, not progress. It tries to minimize danger, embarrassment, heartbreak, judgment, even if it means shrinking your own life. But the truth is, you're not here to shrink. You're here to understand that your mind reacts based on old data, old fears, old versions of you that no longer match who you're becoming. Once you see your mind as the place where the game begins, not where it ends, everything changes. You stop believing every thought that passes through. You start asking, is this protecting me or limiting me? And that one question alone can turn an entire life around. This chapter isn't about fixing your mind. It's about understanding it so you can play the game instead of being played by it. Chapter 4. The words that shape your reality. If there's one part of life people underestimate more than anything else, it's the power of the words they speak every single day. Not the dramatic statements, not the big speeches, just the casual things you say without thinking. I'm tired. My luck sucks. This always happens to me. At first, these lines feel harmless. They feel like venting, but over time, they become something heavier. They become your script. The words you repeat turn into the expectations you hold, and your expectations quietly push your life in specific directions. You don't notice it at first. You just notice that your confidence feels low, or opportunities feel out of reach, or life feels heavier than it should. But when you trace it back, you often find a trail of small negative phrases that kept reinforcing the same version of you, even when you were trying to grow past it. It's not about about pretending everything is perfect. It's about being aware that language is one of the few tools you use daily that can build you or break you just as easily. Think about the difference between saying, "I can't do this," and "I'm learning how to do this." The situation doesn't change, but the energy does. The direction does. Your identity does. When your words shift, the way you interpret your life shifts with them. You start giving yourself more space, more patience, more permission to try again. And that simple shift often becomes the difference between staying stuck and finding your way forward. This chapter isn't asking you to speak like someone who has everything figured out. It's asking you to speak like someone who's giving themselves a chance. Because the story you tell yourself, out loud or in your head, eventually becomes the life you live. Chapter 5. Belief, the silent winner or secret enemy. Belief is one of those things we talk about casually, but rarely understand in a real practical way. Most people think belief is just about confidence or positivity, but it's much more personal than that. It's the quiet internal judgment you hold about who you are and what you deserve. And the difficult truth is that your life often rises only as high as your beliefs allow. Not because life is unfair, but because your mind rarely chases what it believes is out of reach. When you think about the goals you've postponed, the dreams you've minimized, or the relationships you settled for, you'll often find a belief sitting beneath the surface, quietly deciding for you. The tricky part is that beliefs aren't built in big emotional moments. They form slowly, quietly, through repeated experiences, disappointments you took too personally, compliments you didn't trust, memories you tried to shake off but never fully processed. Over time, these moments shape the way you see yourself. If you grew up being told you needed to be careful, you probably became someone who avoids risks. If you spent years feeling unseen, you might have learned to shrink around others. And if you've been hurt enough times, you might have built a belief that love, or success, or stability is something reserved for other people. But belief isn't fixed. It's learned, which means it can be unlearned. And that's where the game begins to change. When you start questioning the stories you've carried for years, stories like, "I'm not enough," "People will leave," "I always mess things up," you finally make space for new stories to replace them. Not unrealistic stories, just honest ones. Stories that reflect who you're becoming instead of who you used to be. This chapter is about giving yourself permission to update your beliefs the same way you update your habits. Slowly, intentionally, and without shame. Because, in the end, belief is either the force that carries you forward or the quiet anchor holding you in place. Chapter 6. The Art of Letting Life Flow. There's a moment in everyone's journey when they realize they've been trying too hard to control everything. You feel it in the exhaustion that hits you at the end of the day, in the tightness in your chest when things don't go as planned, in the frustration of trying to force outcomes that refuse to cooperate. It's a draining way to live, and yet it's incredibly common. We don't do it because we're stubborn. We do it because uncertainty scares us. We try to shape every moment because we're terrified of what might happen if we don't. But life has its own rhythm, its own timeline, its own way of opening and closing doors. And the more you try to grip tightly, the more life seems to resist you. Letting things flow doesn't mean being passive or careless. It means understanding that pressure doesn't speed up growth. No matter how hard you push a seed, it won't bloom before its time. No matter how tightly you grip someone, it won't make them stay. And no matter how much you stress over the future, it won't guarantee the outcome you want. Letting life flow is about learning to act without forcing, to trust without controlling, to show up without micromanaging every detail. It's understanding that some things are meant for you and some things are meant to teach you. And the sooner you accept that, the less resistance you create. You stop seeing delays as failures and start seeing them as timing. You stop seeing mistakes as proof you're not enough and start seeing them as part of your growth. And most importantly, you stop carrying the weight of everything that isn't yours to hold. This chapter is an invitation to breathe again, to release the unnecessary pressure, to understand that when you loosen your grip, you gain clarity. When you stop forcing, you allow space for what's right. When you trust the flow, the game of life stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like a journey you're actually meant to experience. Chapter 7, Expectations that Rewrite Your Future. There's a quiet moment before anything meaningful happens in your life, a moment where expectation sets the tone long before the outcome arrives. Most people don't realize how much influence their expectations carry. Not because expectations magically attract things, but because they shape the way you show up, the opportunities you notice, the ones you ignore, and the energy you bring into every room. When you expect disappointment, you hesitate. When you expect rejection, you shrink. When you expect things to fall apart, you stop giving your full effort because deep down, you believe it won't matter anyway. Expectations don't just predict your future, they slowly create it. Think about the times in your life when you expected things to go wrong. You probably walked in, guarded, prepared for the worst, ready to protect yourself. And even though that might feel safe, it closes you off from the very possibilities that could change everything. On the other hand, think about moments when you genuinely believed something was possible. You stood taller. You spoke with more confidence. You noticed opportunities you would have walked past before. Expectation didn't hand you success, but it shaped your behavior enough to move you closer to it. The challenge is that expectations often come from past pain, not present truth. You stop trusting good things because you've been let down before. You stop believing in chances because you've missed some. You stop assuming things can improve because you've had too many days that felt the same. But expecting the worst doesn't protect you. It just keeps you stuck in patterns you no longer deserve. This chapter is about choosing expectations that give your future a fighting chance. Not blind optimism, not unrealistic hope, just a willingness to believe that new outcomes are possible. Because when your expectations shift, even slightly, your future quietly shifts with them. Chapter 8, Breaking Patterns That Hold You Back. Everyone has patterns, habits of thought, emotional responses, and ways of behaving that show up again and again, even when you wish they wouldn't. You don't choose these patterns. They form slowly, often as survival strategies. You learn to stay quiet because speaking up once led to embarrassment. You learn to be overly independent because depending on someone hurt you. You learn to keep expectations low because disappointment bruised you deeper than you admitted. And before you even realize it, these patterns become your default settings, guiding your life in ways you never intended. The hardest part about breaking patterns is that they're familiar. Even when they limit you, they feel safe. You know how to navigate them. Stepping out of them feels uncomfortable, even wrong. That's why people repeat the same relationships, the same conflicts, the same excuses, the same emotional reactions. They stay where the pattern is predictable. But predictability isn't the same as peace. It's just the absence of risk. And living without risk might keep you from getting hurt, but it also keeps you from growing, connecting, and discovering who you can be. Breaking a pattern doesn't start with massive change. It starts with awareness, the ability to pause in the moment and say, "This is the old me trying to take over again." That single moment of recognition is the opening. It's the small space where you can choose differently, where you can respond instead of react, speak instead of shrink, try instead of avoid. You don't rewrite your entire life in a day. You rewrite it in those quiet, repeated moments when you choose a slightly new path. This chapter is about giving yourself permission to evolve beyond your past patterns. Not because your past was wrong, but because your future requires more than the old version of you can offer. And once you take that first step out of the loop, even if it's uncomfortable, you begin to see how much more life has been waiting for you. Chapter 9. The energy you carry into every choice. There's something we rarely pay attention to, yet it affects every conversation, every decision, and every opportunity that shows up in our lives. The energy we bring into the moment. Not the loud kind, not excitement or enthusiasm. I'm talking about the quieter energy beneath the surface, the tension you carry when you're anxious, the heaviness that follows you after a disappointment, the guardedness that comes from being hurt one too many times. This energy shapes how people respond to you, but more importantly, it shapes how you respond to life. You can make the right decision with the wrong energy, and it still won't feel right. You can walk into a room with fear in your chest and miss every chance to speak up. You can start a new relationship while still holding the weight of the old one and wonder why it feels hard to trust. The energy you carry becomes the lens through which you experience everything. And until you notice that lens, life keeps repeating the same lessons. Your energy either opens doors or closes them. When you enter situations expecting rejection, you behave in small, cautious ways. When you expect judgment, you filter yourself until you barely sound like you. But when your energy shifts, even slightly, from fear to curiosity, from doubt to willingness, from anxiety to presence, everything softens. Life stops feeling like a test. It becomes an interaction, not a battlefield. This chapter isn't about forcing positive energy. It's about understanding the emotional weight you bring with you and learning how to release what no longer supports the person you're becoming. Chapter 10. Stepping into the life you're meant to live. There comes a moment, quiet, private, almost unspoken, when you realize you're done living small. You're done replaying the same fears, carrying the same doubts, and waiting for the perfect moment to finally begin. That moment doesn't arrive with applause or clarity. It arrives as a simple inner shift. I can't keep living like this. And ironically, that shift is where real change starts. The life you're meant to live isn't built through giant leaps. It grows from consistent alignment between who you are and who you want to be. It grows from choices that support your future self, even when they feel uncomfortable. It grows from speaking honestly, even when your voice shakes. It grows from trusting your own timing instead of racing someone else's timeline. Stepping into your life means accepting that fear won't disappear. You just stop letting it drive. Doubt won't vanish. You just stop taking instruction from it. The world won't suddenly open all its doors. You simply learn to walk toward them anyway. In this final chapter, the real message is simple. Your life begins the moment you stop treating yourself like a background character and finally step into the role you were meant to play. Conclusion. If there's one truth you take away from this experience, let it be this. Your life changes the moment you begin paying attention, not to the noise around you, but to the quiet guidance inside you that you've ignored for years. The game of life isn't about competition, luck, or chasing perfection. It's about understanding how your thoughts shape your choices, how your beliefs shape your direction, and how your patterns shape your future. The real work happens internally, long before the results ever show up in your world. You've learned that the rules of life aren't rigid, they're personal. They shift when you shift. They open when you open. And the more aware you become of your inner world, the more power you gain in your outer world. This journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally becoming the version of yourself you've always hinted at, but never fully stepped into. There will still be days when doubt creeps in, when old habits pull you back, when you feel like you're starting from scratch. That's part of the process. Growth looks messy up close, but beautiful in hindsight. What matters is that you don't stop. You keep choosing clarity. You keep choosing presence. You keep choosing yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. You have more influence over your life than you've ever been taught to believe. And now, you're equipped to use it, not through force, but through awareness. Not by controlling life, but by learning how to walk with it. When you're ready, your next chapter waits for you. And if you want to keep growing, keep learning, and keep building the life that finally feels like yours, make sure to check out the next audio in your journey.